In today's TCI Tuesday session, we're going to begin looking at some of the active learning strategies that are part of TCI. In the last session, we looked at the TCI learning cycle. Now we're going to begin looking at some of those core instructional strategies or those engagement strategies that are part of the cycle. And in this session, we're going to look at the skill builder strategy. Social studies skills are vital to a student's success. The ability to read maps, categorize information, analyze artifacts and primary sources, compare and contrast ideas, summarize main ideas, and interpret historical documents are all skills they need to master more difficult content in secondary school. These skill builder strategies are found throughout your TCI program. And I want to emphasize here that the reason we discuss these strategies is so that you are empowered as the classroom teacher to make the necessary adaptations to make these skills and these strategies work for your students. So even though the TCI platform is lesson-based, and even though it will provide you with step-by-step guidance for each of these strategies when it's incorporated into a lesson, we think it's important to really understand the underlying pedagogy, the underlying principles behind these strategies so that you can make the necessary adaptations to make them work in your classroom. There may be instances where you incorporate the skill builder strategy by developing your own skill builder activity that's not part of the TCI platform. And that is really the power of TCI, is in the instructional strategies and your ability to use them in meaningful and engaging ways in your instruction, not simply to follow the platform as is or the lesson as is. That may work in some instances, and there may be other instances where you make a lot of adaptations and you build your own lessons around some of these instructional strategies. So that's why we're getting into some of the in-depth information about these particular skills. So I'm going to jump over to our Bring Learning Alive training book, and I will provide you with a link to the Bring Learning Alive training book, sometimes known as the BLA book. And anytime you want to find a particular strategy inside of this book, you can always use your Control or Command F if you're on a Mac, and you can type that keyword in, and it will take you to every instance in which, in this case, the social studies skill builder strategy occurs. That's just a quick way, rather than scrolling through the entire document, to find where you want to go. So this is what the page looks like for social studies skill builder. And on that first page, and this is the same with every strategy, they give you the steps at a glance to do social studies skill builder. So here are the 5 steps of incorporating the skill builder strategy. Number 1 is to use engaging tasks to teach social studies skills. Again, the nice thing about TCI being lesson-based is if there's a skill builder strategy in the lesson, they include the engaging tasks and the resources in order to do that. If you want to adapt and expand it, or maybe you are developing your own lesson, or maybe you're even using this for a class that doesn't have a TCI product, one of our elective courses, then you can pull in some of the resources, some primary sources. They might be photographs or maps or political cartoons, data sets, graphs, charts. All of this can be incorporated into a skill builder. For the lessons that are in TCI, you have those tasks included. Second, to teach the skill through modeling and guided practice. This is a very important step. We don't simply want to hand students skill builder worksheets for them to fill out. This is beyond the worksheet. These are skills we're trying to cultivate and develop, and this modeling and guided practice is very important. We do want to explicitly explain and define the steps that students should use to solve these problems, to address the skills, but we want to make sure that we model that for them. So we walk through an example with students and with the teacher explaining how he or she completes the task. And then we provide some guided practice, right? We give students the opportunity to do a little bit on their own, maybe solve one step of a problem, maybe answer one question associated with a source. Step 3 is to prepare students to work in pairs. As you get accustomed to, as your students get accustomed to working in small groups and pairs, this will be a step that you can move through relatively quickly, but just setting some expectations here for what you expect students to do when they work together in pairs or in small groups will be necessary at the beginning. And it's important here to make sure that even though students are having conversation and discussing and working together, that they are still individually responsible and accountable for recording the information. Step 4, set clear expectations. Allow students to practice the skill repeatedly and give immediate feedback. So in the skill builder strategy, you're going to repeat the same strategy over and over again, the same steps over again multiple times. And it may be, depending on how many you can get inside of a class period, they may do this step 4 or 5 or 6 times within a given class period. So you're going to model, you're going to give them an example. You're going to allow them to do one with you, guiding them through it. Then you're going to put students into pairs, and then they are going to practice the skill repeatedly. So again, if it's photographs or if it's political cartoons or if it's maps, there are going to be multiple instances in which they go through the same process. Okay? And I'll show you some examples here in just a minute. It's also important here to be providing feedback to students as they go, to make sure that students are practicing the skill correctly as they do it each time, and that they're getting better at the skill each time that they do it. It's important to scaffold through this process, to spiral from easier to more complex tasks as well. And then in step 5, you want to make sure you debrief the lesson. Help students make connections to the key social studies concepts. So let's pull all of these discrete individual tasks, whether they're visuals or images or graphs or charts, let's pull them all together and draw some conclusions. So that's the steps at a glance to social studies skill builder. Let me just scroll down to the next page to show you that all of this information that I've just given you is right here and more. In the pages that follow, they will also give you examples. But again, if you're using the TCI lessons, they have the materials actually in here. But the power of this is to know if I want to customize and develop my own, here are some additional examples of how it can be done. So here's a sample one that deals with an outline map of the United States, and it goes through the process of how you might do that. When I think of teaching social studies skill builders, it's a little bit like a math lesson, right? If you remember back to your math classes, you would sort of explain the concepts behind it and how to do a particular problem. The teacher would model one on the board for you, and then they might ask you to do a problem with a little bit of assistance, do one independently, maybe work in groups to do a set of problems. And that's really what the social studies skill builder is. Math is a skill-based, process-based discipline, and social studies is both content and process. And so the skill builder really is the process aspect of social studies. And so think of it like teaching a math lesson with practice along the way. So that's what the training book looks like. This is our Bring Learning Alive guidebook. I'll scroll to the top just so you can see the cover. This is the Bring Learning Alive book, which I will provide the link for you as well. So let's just jump over to the platform and let's take a look at some examples. How do I find where my skill builders are and what do those examples look like? So I'm going to choose, I know there's a great skill builder here in History Live, Pursuing American Ideals. So I'm going to choose that. If I go over here to my lesson guides, and I happen to know, well, let me show you first where you can find that, because you may not happen to know where there's a skill builder lesson. So again, if I'm here on my content page, I will always see the teaching strategies. Okay. Now go up here to the modify view button and make sure that you have that checked. And if you have that checked and the teaching strategy, this is really the core teaching strategy. There may be others embedded into the preview, activity and processing, et cetera, but this is really the core teaching strategy. And again, you can use your Control and Command F if you like to search, and I see in this instance, Skill Builder comes up, looks like 15 times. Some of that may be repeated just in the description, but you can see there are quite a few Skill Builder activities. Not all of these may be in chapters and lessons that you're doing in your class, but quite a few of them will be. So let's go to this one on the age of innovation in industry. Okay. And when I open that up, this takes me back to where I was, the lesson guides, and the strategy is going to be right here in this activity portion. And there we see it's called Social Studies Skill Builder, and it's going to walk me through step by step how to teach this Skill Builder strategy. The nice thing about using the lesson guides as well is they will provide you with the materials. So as I'm clicking through, there's always the orange buttons over here that provide me with some of the materials. Or if you like to print things in advance, you can always go over here to the materials tab and you can find those. Click on the handouts and you can see this is a skill builder strategy that requires students to analyze data sets on the rise of industry, as well as there's always some sort of visual associated with the data sets. So that handout provides what are the cards that students will be analyzing. And you can see, again, this is something that's repeated multiple times. And you can see in this instance, there are 4 different cards. And they will also be using their interactive notebook to answer some of the questions. So they'll use the placard sets. In many instances, they'll use the interactive notebook. Sometimes they're incorporating the textbook into it. So all of the different pieces and parts of the TCI program are incorporated into that. But that's how you find and locate where the skill builders are in your program. Again, if you're on your content dashboard, and it's not that you're going to necessarily teach these all of these skill builders at once, but as you're customizing, as you're using some of these where it's appropriate in the curriculum, that just sort of draws your attention to it if you do that kind of quick search. And again, I would encourage you to look at, maybe there are other instances, and you may have done this already in your class, and you just didn't necessarily call it a skill builder, but maybe you've done activities where you've analyzed propaganda posters or data sets and graphs, and you've had students construct your own graphs. That's actually a part of the one I didn't show you the full picture there on that last activity. But so that's just a way of finding those kind of quickly and seeing what the skill builders are all about, and helping you to sort of internalize that strategy so that you can really make it your own. That's the social studies skill builder in a nutshell. And we will begin to unpack in future sessions some additional TCI strategies.